Yay!
All right, so welcome to our International Women's Day Live. And I'm going to be chatting here with Sonia Couto, and she has had a lot of experience over a decade in the tech industry. And myself as well. I've had over 10 years of experience in the tech industry. So I thought that we could get together and chat a little bit about women in tech, especially on this day, International Women's Day. It's a good day to have this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of questions for you too. So I think we're gonna have like a good back and forth because you and I have been through a journey in tech, so it's gonna be like really interesting.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So I think like it's still really relevant, like even in Canada,
Mhm.
women are still highly underrepresented in tech. And I think like looking at the stats, it's about 25% of the tech industry is made up of women,
Mhm.
right? And I think that includes like women who are developers, also like in management and executive positions. So I'm curious from your take as a woman in tech in Canada, do you think like it's improving?
I mean, compared to like 15 years ago when I started in tech, yes, I would say yes. It is improving, but I mean, I obviously everyone has their own view, so I'm going to give my view on
Hmm.
what I think. I think a lot of it has changed, not because of global change, but because a lot of women have said, enough is enough. If we're not going to have these positions available to us, we're going to go and start our own companies.
Hmm.
So in the last like 15 years since I've started in tech, I have seen a huge change in that where a lot more women are starting their own companies, and not just in tech and just in general. A lot of women are just saying, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the risk. And I think that's why the gap has changed a little bit because
Hmm.
I think I don't know the exact percentage, but I know a high percentage of that is women who've just become their own bosses.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I feel like now that it has been more addressed. There's a lot more opportunities now for women in the tech industry in general. Like there's programs dedicated just for women in tech who want to be founders to get their businesses started on the ground. And you're right, you didn't see that as much like 15 years ago.
No, not at all.
Yeah, yeah. I remember like probably about 15 years ago is when I did a web design and development course, and being in that classroom, it's really like 80% were men, 20% were women, right? And I can only imagine what it would be like to walk into a classroom like that where it was reversed, like where there were,
Right?
or at least like 50-50.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely don't think we're there yet, but I think yeah, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see that some companies are making change, but then there's pros and cons to everything, right? I see companies that are going above and beyond to make sure that they have women directors and VPs and running companies, and then I see companies that are doing it because they sort of feel like they have to, or they're
Hmm.
doing it to create an image. But then I talk to these women and they're like, our company is putting these policies in place and they're doing it, but they're not hearing us. And we're sitting in the boardrooms, but we're still being treated as if we're just sitting there. They're not really taking our ideas into account. And so there's still a lot of work to be done, and to really have women be heard and taken seriously, because that's a whole other topic that we could talk about for days and days.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, let me ask you a couple questions. You've been at Converge for over 10 years now. And when you started, this is actually a really good comparison I'm going to make. When you started, the company was male directed. It was owned by males. It was run by a couple males. And now, 10 years later, the company is being led by a female, and you're now a director in the company. So, how has that had an impact on your career within the company? Do you think you would be where you are today if the company was still being male driven?
That's a really good question.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would like to say, like in the case of Converge, it's hard to say.
Well, the
I
company
mean, I
has
like to,
changed as well, right?
yeah, I like to think that my, like the advancements that I've made at Converge have been a result of my initiative, hard work, going, doing courses, at night and on weekends, like over the
Yeah.
years to, improve my skill sets. And I'd like to think that those still would have been acknowledged in the case that the Converge was not a woman-led company. Um, and I have to say, like, in the past, I think, there have been times where I've had coworkers who, treated me differently because I was a woman.
Hmm.
But I feel now that, the company is woman led, that I don't really feel I'm treated that way
Yeah, that's
anymore.
actually a really good point.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I think that yeah, even for myself, when I first started in the company, it was male driven, and just like you, like I think you and I are very alike. Where we're the type of people that believe in putting in the work so that we
Hmm.
can get the results out of it. And I think you and I have been very not lucky, but fortunate that Converge had an environment that was encouraging that and saw the hard work that we were putting in
Hmm.
and helped us, in our career path within the company. So that's fantastic. But, going back and looking at it, I mean, I can think of so many situations where I wasn't taken seriously. And, I remember like there's this one thing in my head that I'll never forget. And I always tell people this story because it's like it just sort of stuck with me. And it was something that was like, wow, okay, that's really encouraging. And it was, we had a client, a very high profile client, and a couple of people had left the company and they needed somebody to step in and sort of like manage this account. And I remember I had to go to this to another country to meet with the client and sort of get things back on track. And I had never done that before in my life, but I was the only person who was sort of available, and I was freaking out, right? I didn't know what I was going to do and how I was going to manage this client. And I remember someone came to me and they're like, I wanted to do some ramp up and get some help on, preparing myself for the meeting with the client. And I was told, you know what? Don't stress out. You'll be okay. You know what you need to do. And I was like, what? Tell me, please. Like, just, dress really nice and wear heels and you'll be fine.
Oh, geez.
And I remember, at the time, I didn't say anything. I'm like, okay, like, just, okay, great. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I think I'm a little bit better than that. Like, I think I can actually walk into a room and speak and, figure my way around. So when I did go to that meeting, I purposely wore pants. I purposely wore flat shoes just because in my head I was being rebellious to what I
Oh,
had.
wow. What a
And
way to rebel.
right, I don't know if it worked, but I did walk into that room and I was nervous. But then, they asked me to go up and sort of present, which I wasn't prepared for. And I was prepared, but I wasn't expecting them to want me to put like this whole presentation together. So I sort of did it on the fly. And I remember at the end of the meeting, the VP was there and he looked at me, and it was a room filled with men. There was like 14 men. I was the only girl there. And I remember when I started talking, my voice was shaking a little bit. But then when I finished, I'm like, oh crap, here we go. Now they're gonna like let me have it. And the VP looked at me, he's like, okay, yeah, like that's a great plan. Like we're on board. Let's sit down and now let's work it out. And I was there for about, a week going through what we were gonna do based on the suggestions I was giving them. And I felt really good that I rebelled in my own brain, in my own head. I felt I didn't have anyone proving to me that I could do it. I had to prove it to myself. And I think that's sort of part of it. If you have someone encouraging you, that's great. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that at Converge we try to do to males and females. It doesn't matter.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
But having to work through that early on in my career where, females weren't seen as, high in those positions and things like that. It was sort of hard to navigate because those kind of comments were constantly there and you kind of have to find a way to block it out and find a way to, I'm going to do this and I know I can do it, and sort of strive and go for it. Because if not, a lot of women get held back with comments like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of a almost like a little bit of like a microaggression, that can be seen and that happens in the workplace. That is a really deterring for women
Yeah,
to
I
work in
mean,
these industries.
I talk to way too many women that make very similar comments like the one I've made. And I think another thing, especially in tech, it's a lot of women are getting into like accounting positions, marketing positions, but I think there's still a long way to go to actually see a lot more women doing developing source code and
Hmm.
engineering and being directors. You're now a director at Converge.
Hmm.
You've done the work to get there. So you started as UI graphics, and then you went into marketing. You became a manager. So you went through the process of sort of growing to a position that you're now a director. What advice do you give for women or young girls that are getting out of school and wanting to achieve sort of the success that you have?
Stay in school. Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I mean, my path, everybody's path is going to look a little bit different.
Mhm.
But I think education is a really important role. So back in my day when I was going into university and stuff, I
Wow,
mean,
Christine, we
I
sound
know,
old.
I know, I feel really old, but I look at it and, the kinds of programs that exist today didn't exist back then. So for my journey was a lot of like, we were sort of the founding of these sort of tech positions, and my generation has created the school programs for the next generation to come up.
Right.
Yeah, like there wasn't really a UI UX design, front end development kind of stuff, product management, like things like that, didn't exist. So yeah, so definitely nowadays, like education is more important, I think, than ever, especially for getting your foot in the door nowadays. So that would be number one. Number two is like to seek out role models. Like, yeah, there's so many let's like associations or groups of like women in tech, and it's really easy nowadays to reach out and find some role models and like someone that people that you can talk to help you.
I agree.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to just go out there and fail too, right? Like that's a big part of I think about how many failures I've had, and I'm like, I'm thankful for those failures now, and I'll
Yeah.
still have them. I'll still fall on my face once in a while, but like you got to do that to grow, to get better.
Yeah.
You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to be okay with things not feeling comfortable to grow.
Yeah.
So the more you put yourself into that position, the faster you'll grow. And ideally, you can do it with somebody helping you out too in the background.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I find that, like you, I've failed. Oh my God, way too many times. But
Hmm.
it's nice to have a work environment that encourages you to not encourages you to fail, but if you fail, they're going to be there to pick you up and
Yeah.
support you, and will try and go above and beyond. I mean, I know not all cultures are perfect, but I think at Converge we do have that sort of environment where people are not afraid that if they make a mistake or they fail, it's going to be a doom for them. They know that.
Hmm.
I like to think that everyone knows that there's we'll help find a solution. There's always a way to help people get better, have a good career path, and not
Hmm.
be afraid to make mistakes, because no one is perfect, right? So I think environment also really helps in that aspect.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing at Converge, I like to think that we're really good at is letting people take ownership of their roles,
Yeah.
and allowing them to find ways to be self-starters, and in that way they're going to push themselves, right, to do new things, to expand their skill sets.
Hmm.
And yeah, and those are the really great opportunities for growth. And when you're trying something new, you're more likely going to make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think Converge helps to foster that.
Yeah, and I mean, mistakes are great because you learn from them, and next
Hmm.
time you're going to do something better, and
Yeah.
you're going to think about it differently, right? I mean, we know we've built a couple of tech startups that weren't necessarily great right in the beginning. And I think, you know, even just talking about not just women in leadership positions and women in tech and stuff like that, but I think that for, just talking about our company in general, I think one of the things that has actually really helped our startups and our building products has been the combination of male and female in the company, because
Yeah.
there's so many different ways of thinking about things.
Mhm.
You bring in all these different people, different cultures, different ways of thinking. It really helps evolve, and we've made the product better based on different opinions of what we're doing. And we even use our clients for that, right? So
Mhm.
it's not just the internal staff saying this is a great idea, let's build this, that, and that, and in different conversations, but we even our clients, males and female, they come in and they tell us what their specific needs might be, and it generates ideas for us to make our companies and our startups even better, right? So it's also like that combination of just different ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Men are very different from women, and women
Mhm.
from men, right? I mean, women are multitaskers. Men are not. That's just my opinion. But I think it's a natural thing, right? Right? Women
Mhm.
are nurturers. I know women. We used to have a lady working at Converge that by the time she got to work at 9 a.m., and I was always shocked by this, she would tell me that she had left the house, laundry was done, dinner was done. She would get up at 5 a.m. and cook dinner so that when she got home, dinner would be done for her and her husband. And she would clean and she would make breakfast. Like she's making dinner and breakfast at 5 a.m. And she's preparing lunches. And by the time she leaves the house, it's like she already had an entire day, right?
Yeah, and then comes
Just,
to her
you know,
career life. Yeah.
her career life, and spends 7 8 whatever hours working on a really job that is also takes a lot of mindset and hard work, and then
Mhm.
goes back home and has to take a train, and now has to think about getting dinner ready and doing all these things. Like women just are natural multitaskers. I think men can multitask, but not as well.
Mhm.
We're just natural to it. It's just what we do.
It's kind of like it's just sort of like I think the diverse like societal expectations on women between balancing, the home life and a career has made us, have to adapt to this role. And yeah, like being
Yeah,
that crazy multitasker.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
think one of the hard things still that needs to like be worked on is just, it's not just getting a position in a company, and it's once you get there, there's a whole other journey that takes place, which is, you want to be respected, and you sort of, have to earn respect. But I talked to way too many women. I was actually talking to a woman the other day, and she was just struggling with, the founder not listening to her and not, just sort of brushing things off that she was saying. So I think that's still like a really big struggle in the workplace for women,
mhm,
just wanting to be heard and needing to be heard, and having the openness to contribute and
mhm.
be heard, and have their ideas get implemented and things like that. I think that's still something that really needs to be worked on. But it's
Yeah.
also an environment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, for us, because we've recently started a new venture, Converge Ventures, right?
Yay.
Yes. And so this is a part of Converge that is dedicated as particularly for startups. Because of our experience in software development and product development, we're kind of in a good spot where we can start to look for other startups to invest in, but also help to mentor so that to help their
Mhm.
businesses grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was thinking, for you, Sonia. So if you're like a woman founder or a woman-led startup, what are some of the early day advice that you would give to other founders? Because you're also a founder yourself.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think being open to criticism is the most important thing. I think also because naturally women are sort of like a little bit standoffish,
Hmm.
uh, just because we're, just because of the environments we're in. But being open to criticism, being open to not be a hogger of your idea and what you're trying to build. I think, just in building our own startups and in talking to a lot of people in startups, I think one of the biggest things that I see is founders sort of like really holding on to their idea, and they kind
Hmm.
of get stuck in a specific phase of the startup, and they're not able to move on and really build out that company because they're not thinking ahead. They're sort of stuck in that mindset. So I would say, be open to criticism, to thinking, to to the idea that maybe your startup is going to fail or it's not a great idea, but it doesn't mean that you can't build it. That's the thing about these tech startups. If you're trying to build something and maybe it's not the right thing, you always have to be thinking about how to pivot, right? How can I
Hmm.
take this and how can I make it, better, or how can I make it fit a different market because the market that I'm trying it on didn't really work out. It doesn't mean you have to fully give up, but you have to have like strong, thick skin to be able to handle rejection and dealing with a lot of different people, and mostly men. Like I have to say, even like with clientele and just working with teams, it's you're mostly working with men. So as a woman, you have to also be open to working with men and take their ideas in and not be hostile about it, right? And
Hmm.
just, yeah, like just being open to accepting ideas and wanting to learn. I think that I that's one thing that you always have to be learning. You always have to listen. Listening is a really good skill to have when you're trying to do that, because a lot of people think they know it all, but you really don't. You don't know what you don't know unless you're willing to listen to someone who's been there, who's done it, and is going to give you really good advice on how to
Hmm.
move forward. And I think I've surrounded myself with a community of like really, really good people who have taken me under their wing and have guided me through a lot of areas where I was struggling or I was stuck.
Hmm.
Even, with one of the products that we have in mining, when we went into that industry, I didn't know anything about it. And I remember I met someone who runs a mining organization, and he just took me under his wing and taught me so much. And he's now one of my mentors. And anytime I want to know something about that industry, I'm like, can you help me out? And it's just like you have to sort of, be open to all of these different things.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because the in a particular, like our product, like Feel Legal, right? It's dealing with a lot of like mining and oil and gas, and I mean those are also very heavily um, male-dominated industries in terms of
Yeah.
the workforce. So as a tech leader going into these industries, I imagine that there can be definitely some challenges there.
Yeah, for sure. There are challenges, but I also have to say that, like, with all of that being said,
Hmm.
people have really embraced me in those industries, and I think there's people that, like, if you show that you're putting in the work and that you know what you're talking about and that you're going into it with a mission or a purpose, people are willing to really look beyond the norm
Hmm.
and help you, and guide you to where you need to go. And I've honestly met some, like in oil and gas and mining. I've met some fantastic people who are like, this industry is really struggling in this area. What you bring to the table is really, really great. There are some areas for improvement. You don't quite, you haven't quite nailed the nail on the head, but we can help you get there, right? And again, it goes into being open. It goes into being professional and also being nice, right? And being nice isn't happens in so many different ways. It happens by listening, being
Hmm.
a good listener. Like I said, like a lot of the things I've already mentioned, it just creates this persona of who you truly are. But it lets people know that you're there for the right reasons, and you want what your purpose is to make the world a better place with your product, hopefully,
Hmm.
or or make that industry better and strive and be, have more technology and, really help people in their day-to-day jobs with these new technologies that we're inventing,
Yeah.
developing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I think I agree. Like I think things are definitely making progress, for the status of women in the tech industry. And you're right, like showing in, putting in the work, being a good listener, showing all of that is gonna
Mhm.
help you get a lot further and heard, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I totally, because like
Yeah.
you can't just like sit behind a desk all day
Mhm.
and sort of do your norm day-to-day job, and expect that you're going to be, elevated to a different position.
Yeah.
You have, as a woman, we have to learn that we need to speak up.
Mhm.
And that is, I know that's something that's hard for women in general, not all women, but
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot. And I think that's what we need to learn. It's, we have to sort of stand up, and that's what I did at Converge.
Yeah.
I saw a need for something, but
Mhm.
I don't have the personality to, sit and do the same thing over and over again forever. So I sort of, placed myself in an area where I thought there was a need for it.
Yeah.
I didn't ask, I just sort of started doing it. And then
Mhm.
before they knew it, the president came to me, is like, "Have you been doing this job?" I'm like, "Yep." So I think you should promote me and really give me that position. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, well, we have to, because if you're not going to continue doing it, we're going to be in trouble, right?" So I sort of,
Yes.
placed
Yes.
myself in areas that I saw a need for, that I knew I could do.
Yeah.
But I also had the support of the company to let me learn, and I went back to school and I studied,
Mhm.
and I had to put in the effort
Yeah.
to do all of these things. But now I run the business, and I I've done majority of every job except development, coding. I'm not or architecture. I don't do that. But like almost every role that within the company, I've taken part in, or I've done myself. And that really helps me when people are coming to me with a challenge, or they're struggling with something. I can sort
Mhm.
of always think back on how I did it when I was in that role, and what were the things that helped me succeed.
Yeah.
And I will never tell them do this, which is something that in the past I failed at. So, it's always, I can actually help the rest of the staff succeed just based on my own lessons learned and experience, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a challenge. There's a lot of things out there, but the world is changing, and I'm seeing a lot more progress. I'm seeing a lot more women. Are we turning the dial to 50-50? No.
No, we got a ways to go. Yeah.
Got a ways to go. Like, is it going to be another year or two or three? No, I think it's going to be a lot longer.
Yeah.
Where does it start? I think it starts with women supporting and encouraging other women
Mhm.
to do those things. Some women they want to say, put their hand up and say, "Hey, I'm here, consider me," but they don't know how to do it. And maybe it's just having encouragement from another woman. "Hey, I was there, I did it,
Yeah.
this is how I did it, give it a try, what do you got to lose?" Just women encouraging women.
Mhm.
And I think that if we start volunteering and putting our hand up and saying, "I want to do it, give me a try," then companies will start listening more. We can't, if we just sit and hope that they're going to give us positions that we want, it's probably most likely not going to happen. It's
Mhm.
really, it's us who have to take the initiative. It's great
Yeah.
when companies stand up and say, "We're going to put policies in place to support, um,
Diversity and
diversity
yeah.
and all of these things." That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And I think a lot more companies are doing it. And I could see in a couple of years that being a very standard practice.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I still think that in order to get to a 50-50, it's really going to be women who have to take the initiative to get there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's so many studies now that show that diversity in teams always win. Like teams perform so much better when there's diversity, and that can include, you know, gender or, like ethnicity, all sorts of different things, right?
Yeah,
The worst thing for business is homogeneity, right? You need diversity
that's a
to
good
get
word.
there. Yeah. Yeah. So, Yeah. So having, more diversity in, executive positions, like we need to get there. We need to get there, and companies are going to thrive. And so the studies show that. We don't see it in place yet, but yeah, I feel more optimistic that we're going there. And I think you're right. Like it's going to be up to, the underrepresented people to really stand up and say, like, no, you need to pick us, you need to pick me, and here's why. And
Yeah,
show your accomplishments and your value and what you bring. And I think,
yeah,
like, for me growing up, like, I don't really have, any role models to look up to, for that. So I think a big part of it is for, the women in the industry to look and see, how we can help, like, younger
yeah,
women come into this industry and learn about it and see successful women in it.
yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, that's such a great point, and that's something that that I want to do at Converge,
Hmm.
where it's I've gone through the mentorship programs in Toronto. I've belonged to a couple of organizations, but I
Yeah.
find that you know for younger at the time I was younger, and for younger girls who are sort of starting out their career, number one, these things are very expensive.
Yes.
And number two, it takes time. And if you're trying to get a mentor, you have to, be willing to, you know, give them your time when they're available to you. But that's one thing that you and I have been talking about at Converge. We're moving
Hmm.
offices in our new space. We want to create, events and things around encouraging women to talk about, not just talk, let's talk about it, but also give them tools to what they can do to help them
Hmm.
get there without having a cost behind it, where it's
Yeah.
just we're going to bring you into our office, we're just going to have a chill night, we're going to talk about different areas where you're struggling, and help you find the resources to
Hmm.
help guide you in the right direction, whether it's in tech or in manufacturing and oil and gas and mining or marketing or sales. I'm sure that we'll get to a point where we'll have a group of women that can sort of support all of those different areas. and
Hmm.
if and if we don't, somebody might know somebody. So I think my goal would be eventually to create like a network that is there's no cost associated with it, but women can really talk and get encouraged and figure out what it is that they need to do, even if it's just building a resume that is going to make you stick out, or how to present, how to identify an area in a company that needs your skill, and how do you present that, right?
Hmm.
And sort of just encouraging women without having to worry about, if I'm going to join an organization that's going to help me, I have to pay, $5,000 a year. That I don't think that's
Crazy.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I've always been passionate about. Sometimes it's just a matter of having the time to do it, but it's something that
Yes.
I know we will be doing this year for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. As the times are changing, and hopefully we're, ending this 2-year long pandemic period, and we can actually start to meet more easily in person, then yeah. So this definitely will make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, for you, what do you like now that you're at you've reached a plateau in your career? If you were to mentor someone, what would you focus on for them to sort of get to where you're at? What
Okay.
would be the number one advice that you would give them, like for someone who wants to, be in marketing or
Mhm.
in product management or develop products? Because I mean, you do so much, so it's hard to say you're not just like a one, role type of person. You've done a
Yeah.
but let's say in the marketing or product space, like
Mhm.
how do you get there? What advice do you give?
Um, like, I would say, if you want to go into marketing and you want to, or, product management, right? Depending on where you are, you definitely, if you're able to do a program, some education around it, it's going to get you there a lot faster. So, going and doing a program, that may be like 1 year or 2 years, right? You're going to get you at least 5, 6 years ahead, right?
Yeah.
Than if you didn't do that. So that is, I think, really an important, place to
Yeah.
start
But
for
you get
sure.
hired, right? You went through the school,
Yeah.
you get hired. So now how do you navigate through that within a
Uh,
company?
Within a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, like you said, it comes down to what we were talking about. Like it's a lot of just like being a self-starter,
Yeah.
right? And showing your value to the company, right? So, like, how do you be a
There's a theme
self-starter?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it also comes from drive too. Like you have to, really want something, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
wanting something is different than, asking for it.
asking for, yeah, taking the initiative to do it. So, in my mentorship, like I have skills in marketing, skills in product development. So, I can offer some practical advice definitely in those areas.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I
Yeah,
go
for
to you
sure.
for that stuff all the time because you know it really well. You've been doing it for a long time, right?
Yeah,
There's so
yeah,
much
yeah.
value that you can give. Do you think that, that's something that women who have been doing something for over a decade should be focusing on and mentoring other women to help them get there as well?
I think it's a great position to be in to give back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
How do you think our school system should be working, or what should our school system be doing? Because you know that I have a problem with our school system, and I think that's where it needs to start. But I'm always curious to see what other women think. Like, do you? And I'm not talking about like university or college. I'm
Mhm.
talking about even just at
Like
a
elementary.
yeah. Like, what do you think schools at that level can do to start encouraging that 50-50?
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that because my daughter is in junior kindergarten and they actually have a STEM teacher that comes in
Okay.
and teaches them every day. And the STEM teacher is a woman
Okay.
as well. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting that they're starting it like right from the get go. Junior kin 4-year-olds, they're learning STEM.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's really positive thing. And I think, because of the gender biases that exist, like we're still living in the patriarchy, I see a lot of the messaging of the patriarchy trickling down into like even my young kids. Like my son is 7, my daughter's 4, and they're already showing, you know, signs of that, right?
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I already see my little girl, valuing her appearance.
Right.
Like she says, "Mommy, do you love me?" I said, "Yes, I love you so much." She's like, "Because I'm a pretty girl." And I mean, that's adorable. But at the same
It
time,
is.
I had to tell her, like, no, I love you because you're you, right? It doesn't matter what you look like. I love you because of you. So I see, these sort of little things trickling down even at that age. So I think that, you know, the messaging that, what they're learning in school really needs to step up about these biases that exist. They're instilled at a very young age, and young kids are so impressionable, so whatever you tell them they believe,
Yeah.
and that kind of gets stuck in our head. So I think, yeah, so I think early education, it needs to start there.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what you just said about your daughter, I'm like, that's cute, but it's also a little scary. And
Yeah.
yeah, but like, do you remember growing up, Christine? I think you can relate. Most girls our age, our goal in life was to like get married and have babies, right?
Right,
Like I
right.
don't I don't remember, I don't know until what age I thought that I needed to go continue schooling and have a career. Like to me that wasn't even a thought as a young girl. Like the mission, and maybe it has something to do with culture. I am from a different culture. I came to Canada
Mhm.
at a young age. So I don't know if it has to do with culture. Maybe there's a culture mix in there, but like I knew that my mission in life was to like get married. And have a wedding, and like us as young girls is sort of like what we plan for, like our
Yeah,
wedding dress.
that's
But we're not
normal. Yeah.
right, but we're not like, no, I'm gonna be a woman boss and I'm gonna run my own company. That's not what we think about, right?
Hmm,
But
hmm.
men do at a very young age.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
So
it's
that's
ingrained
a
from them
good
at a young
point.
age. Yes.
So yeah, I think even just saying that, like even mothers, sort of understanding that. I mean, when you said it, I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest. So it's kind of like an eye opening. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of mothers that don't even think about it just based on what kids are watching cartoons wise. And I know that they're changing that a lot, but stories that they're reading where the woman has a very specific role and things like that. Yeah, kids are impressionable, and that's what they're taking in. So, parents can have a say and help their kids sort of like think outside the box. I know, like, I have a 4-year-old niece, and she has an iPad, and I was actually surprised the other day that her favorite game on that iPad, every time I go over, so it was my iPad and I gave it to her, so every time I go over, she's like, I want to buy this game. And there's this one that the subscription renews, so I have to renew it for her, and it's actually a coding game, and it's like her favorite, and that's what she wants to do. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's really cool. She doesn't even, at that age, she doesn't even see the difference yet. She's just like, she wants to be able to do whatever she wants to do. So I'm curious as well, like what age kids start really identifying that difference, right? Where it's like, I can't do this because I'm a girl, or I can't do that because I'm a boy. And I mean, I know we're talking about women because it is International Women's Day, but men go through the same thing, right? At a young age, they're taught that this is sort of your role when you grow up, and you're the bread, maker, and you have to, if you want to get a good woman, you have to have a good job and all this stuff, right? So it's a lot of pressure there too.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's a conversation with one of our guys.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Different live or podcast.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see sort of, now that we've sort of talked about like young kids, it'd be very interesting to get like a guy's perspective as, what they thought about as a young child, to really identify where these things are coming from.
Yeah. That will be the next live. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think like Women's Day is still, very important because, women's equality benefits society as a whole, right? Like I said, in terms of like building diversity on teams, changing a lot of these gender stereotypes, it's beneficial to everybody. So yeah.
I'm a big believer in, hiring the right person for the job. But, I do want to have a company that has diversity, because we have experienced it. Converge has been around for 28 years, and you and I have experienced the difference between having, between having 20% women and more men, and 50-50, and we actually can physically see the difference in our work and in the results and things like that. So it is something that's really important to us, and we're going to continue doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's hard to find women. I know you were struggling with that a little while ago. And
because it's tech, right? You're like, I need to find, like, we need diversity. Where are these amazing women? For sure. Like, you want to hire the right person for the job with the right skill set, that's going to help your company grow. But you also have to think about culture and diversity as well. So,
it definitely adds complexity to the HR department.
Yes.
Right? Because now it's not just about, I mean, it's hard enough to hire. Nowadays, it's been super hard. But, you're trying to find the right candidate who has the experience to do the job. And then you're sort of also thinking about culture, right? Which is something that, 20, 25 years ago, 50 years ago wasn't even thought about, right?
Yeah.
So companies are also evolving and changing into, having different HR policies.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think we're coming up to
we went for a while.
So, yeah. So Sonia, thank you so much. That was an amazing chat. To have you talk about this on International Women's Day, and it's thanks again for coming.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to do it.
All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day.